the time I'm in my car and I'm driving, and I start thinking about all the negative different scenarios that could be happening in terms of like, what if this happens? What if that? And then I decided at that moment, all I'm going to do is just decide whatever the situation is, we will rebuild, we will make it bigger, we will make it better.
Welcome to Flip Your Script, the podcast about life's critical turning points and how people find the inspiration and motivation to move forward and rewrite their unique stories. Produced by Media Minefield, the show is hosted by Christy Peel, who flipped her script from an Emmy-winning journalist to a successful entrepreneur and speaker.
Today, we have the privilege of hearing a story you can't Google or research because the man at the center doesn't talk about it. I'm so honored Chris Maxson is willing to share his story with you. It's about the day he professionally lost everything and how he battled back. Chris is the CEO of AccuCraft Fireplaces. Now, you may not have heard of the company, but you've probably walked past one of his high-end custom gas fireplaces in a restaurant, a hotel, a casino, or in a stunning home. From his shop in Big Lake, Minnesota, his fireplaces are shipped all over the country. Chris and I have been in a peer group for several years. I know him really well, consider him a dear friend, but I wasn't sure he'd agree to share his story. In fact, until he and I got together today, I wasn't sure if he was going to bail, but he's here. Chris, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Christy.
So I want to start with the day that your life is going great. You have this fantastic company, you have all these employees, and you get a phone call and you heard about your business as you knew it was over. Tell me about the call and the drive that really changed the course of your professional life.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, so Sunday morning, received a phone call like 6:30 in the morning on my landline, and I remember picking it up and just hearing from one of my employees that our building was going through fire, and I wasn't sure exactly how bad the situation was, but he said, you just want to get here right now. And at that time, I was kind of mixed a little bit because my wife was out of town. My young daughters were home, and they could take care of themselves. And but I just, at that moment, just decided I've got to get in my car and I've got to see what is taking place at the company. And I just had a feeling from talking with the employee and the situation that it was going to be pretty tragic. But I also knew, in terms of our company and the orders and the momentum that we had, that, okay, so, I get in my car. At the time, I'm in my car and I'm driving, and I start thinking about all the negative different scenarios that could be happening in terms of like, what if this happens? What if that? And then I decided at that moment, all I'm going to do is just decide whatever the situation is, we will rebuild, we will make it bigger, we will make it better. I really was just going through in my head, like the week before, how are we going to continue to grow inside of our current building? We were exploding with orders. We had, 3-4 months of orders way exceeding our ability to produce. And we were actually about 4 weeks behind with shipping. So that was causing quite a bit of stress. And so we had really at that time about 100 custom orders, and we had the ability to produce about 15 or so a month. So we had a pretty big backlog of work that we needed to be focused on. And at the time, that drive, it's a 40-minute drive. I felt like, I was there in like 10 minutes, because my mind was just swirling through the whole drive. And arriving at that site where you saw, 15, 20 fire trucks, a big front end loader just smashing the front of our building right in the office. I envisioned maybe a fire in the back or something like that. But to see, the fire started in the office with electrical mishap. And so they were smashing the front of our building. They took our entire office with this front end loader and just were crushing it just so that they could get the fire out that was in the attic. And 10 to 15 fire trucks around the scene. And 40, 50 people were there, just standing there, cars and trucks everywhere. And we had a bunch of employees off to the side. I remember walking up and looking and meeting with the different employees and just trying to reconfirm with them, like, it's going to be okay.
And so a couple things you said. So first of all, how many employees did you have at that time?
Probably about 20 to 25 employees.
And it was a few years ago, so it wasn't like there was a FaceTime picture or something that you really had no idea what you were driving up to.
No idea.
So you get there, there's all these fire trucks, you see the employees. what are they doing? Crying, hugging? Tell me about their demeanor.
A lot of them were just staring in shock. And, quite a few were also just crying, looking at, obviously all the work that we had, put into this business together as a team. I think a lot of people just felt the loss of our company and our culture.
And did you know immediately as a leader that you had to not be a puddle of tears? You had to be the force of strength in that moment? Did you innately know that you needed to calm them?
No, I guess I wasn't like directly thinking that, because I did go up to our office manager and was trying to be just confirming and positive and just say, well, at least we have our data, because at that time we used these remote storage devices. And so every day we do a backup and then somebody would bring it home just to keep it off site. And I said, well, at least we have our data off site so that we can rebuild from that. And she said, unfortunately, all of our backup devices were on location, on site in the fire, because our IT guy was coming to take a look to make sure that they were working that following day. So we lost 100% of our data. I remember that being a kick to the stomach.
So you lost your building, you lost every piece of fireplace that was in process, all the information, all the data, all the intel, literally completely wiped out.
Totally. The only thing that we had was our employees. And I know every employee or every leader always says, the employees are the most important thing. And it is so true when that's absolutely all you have are your employees.
And this podcast is about people who flip their script, right? People who have a defining moment and make a choice. And your defining moment was that fire, but you had decided on the way to see the fire that you were going to battle back. That decision you made in that 40-minute turned 10-minute car ride.
Absolutely.
So you never wavered from it because for you, it was about the people. The one thing you had were those people and you were going to rebuild for them.
Right. When I was thinking about all of our employees and our employees' families, and then also all the commitments that we've made to our customers, because one of our main statements here is we follow through on every promise and commitment we make. And so for me as a leader, it's my commitment that I've made to all of our employees and their families. And we actually count the number of family members that are involved directly with AccuCraft. And that includes, we celebrate children, we celebrate all those things because it's in addition to the AccuCraft family. And so my commitment obviously is to our employees and their families, and then also secondary is to our customers and following up on the commitments we made to them.
And so for you, so much of this is about people because you had this strong culture that is the reason that you decided to rebuild and decided to battle back. But also through this time, because I know your story, you were shocked and really touched by all the people who came around that were not your employees that got you through. The reason you were able to battle back was because of support of other people. Talk about what those people did and how much that surprised you.
Okay. Yeah. Great question, Christy. So if we can go back to Sunday morning, we're all sitting around looking at the fire, talking about the loss of data and just running numbers in our head in terms of, okay, we've got 7,000 blueprints, 6,000 quotes, all our customer database, all the information is gone. And at that moment, in terms of flipping the script, we decided, let's leave. Nothing, we can't do anything here. With this fire, the fire team, that's working on it and everybody there doing an excellent job. Let's leave and let's go. We went to Big Lake Cafe and I just told all the employees to invite their family. And we all met at the Big Lake Cafe and filled up this little cafe. And at that time, obviously there's a lot of emotion and those types of things, but we all decided, what do we need to do today? And then what are we going to do tomorrow? But it was really about focusing on today. And at that time, we were going through and talking about a whole bunch of different scenarios. But number one was we need an office, and then we need to get phones, and then we need to get computers. And those are the only three things that we can be focusing on. And at that time, the owner of the Big Lake Cafe came up and he goes, Chris, I understand you're looking for an office. I heard that your building burned down. My cousin across the street, he owns this office building. I could have you take a look at it. I said, that'd be wonderful. So within half an hour of that conversation, we had a lease signed. We were in an office building. And then that owner of that building also worked for the phone company. So he says, Chris, do you need phones? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I've got about 15 phones in my truck. I can get you set up today with phone internet. I said, oh my gosh, that'd be wonderful. And then our IT guy showed up. He had heard about the fire, drove to Best Buy and purchased, I don't know, probably 10, 12 computers and a server. And he worked through the night on Sunday so that by Monday morning, we had an office, we had phones, and we had computers. So we were able to get started. And it was just absolutely incredible because with our phone being plugged in and then the number of community people that were showing up, we had 2 manufacturing facilities that were opened up to us. Within 3 days of the fire, we were actually making parts. And a lot of our fellow business leaders also loaned their employees to us to help make parts, to run machines we didn't know how to run. Our employees really worked together to really rally and be able to guide in terms of, how do we build these fireplaces? What do the blueprints look like? And but it was a real community effort.
And some folks stepped up and gave you equipment, and without them, you wouldn't have been able to do it. And it was so generous. The generosity of the community and the peer groups and your friends and the people around you is really what got you through. Has that changed how you approach life, approach generosity, approach other people's tragedies?
Well, I think absolutely, because I do feel when any individual is going through a different type of tragedy, whether it's like a disease, a death, or divorce, or anything, a major, everybody's going to react differently to it. And this was a major situation where some people just totally surprised me with their generosity. And I think it was just people reaching out, just saying and addressing whatever the situation was and just saying, Chris, I can't believe the situation you're in. Here's what I can do to help. It wasn't like, if you need anything, let me know. It wasn't a passive. It was a very direct. Here's what I can do to help. Can I get started? Because I'm also one, I think, who tries to be a person who gives and maybe doesn't receive. So for me, the receiving end of this was very challenging, but it was also necessary for us to be able to succeed. Was we really needed to rely on so many others, and so it was overwhelming. In fact, I still get emotional just thinking about how generous people were. I mean, the gentleman who owned a facility behind us had an old machine shop that he really hadn't used in years. And then behind the machine shop, he had about 15,000 square feet where he just stored boats. And he came to me Sunday and said, Chris, I'm going to take all the boats out of my shop and just tell everybody to come and pick them up a month or two early. And what's mine is yours. Come on in and just start making the parts. I'll have all the steel delivered directly to my office, my shop, and then we can get going. And I'll show those guys how to run these old machines. I just started crying. I couldn't believe. I was like, Doug, I don't know how to thank you. And he just said, let's get to work. So he called our steel company. He had all the steel delivered. It was just an overwhelming time of generosity in our community.
What I love about that is that, and the takeaway is that you're not the type of guy who would have called Doug and said, hey, could I borrow this? Could you move those boats? You would have never done that. You probably wouldn't even thought about it. You're in the middle of this tragedy, right? People around you are crying, trying to figure out if they even have jobs. And Doug comes over and says, here's what I'm doing for you. And he was very tactical. And that really was the difference, because by Monday morning, so this happened Sunday, Monday morning, you're all set up to go. And tell me about the phone ringing, and you got an order, right?
Yeah. So Monday morning, I've got the sales team in there, and I'm working through the sales team. I said, okay, here's what we need to do. We don't have our customers' information. We had approximately 100 orders that we need to fulfill. We need to find out who those 100 people are. We need a copy of their order and, if possible, a blueprint or some PDF of what we're building for them. So, we're going through all the incoming emails, because those we could log into a Gmail setup to see when people would reply to different quotes and orders. So I said, your job right now is just please reach out to as many customers as you can. And we need printouts of all their orders so that we can start rebuilding and prioritizing who they are. And probably within half an hour of that, a phone call came in. The salesperson covered, the headset and was like, Chris, this person would like to buy a $20,000 fireplace, a Blaze 10. What should I do? And I said, well, take the order. And he's like, okay. So then he takes all the information, and then he goes, well, what should I tell him about a lead time? I said, well, ask him how soon he needs it. And he says, I'm not in a huge hurry, but I'll take it, in a couple months. So I said, perfect. Let him know that we'll be communicating with him weekly and be able to provide him with an actual ship date within a month. So we took that order, and it was just such a sense of pride for all of us because we're still in business, and went around to all the different shops because now all the employees are spread out in 3 or 4 different locations. Some people are cleaning up our old building and doing inventory of those things for insurance, and we've got other people making parts and doing those things. But going around with that order just to show people that, hey, we're still in business and we're taking orders, and now we've got to get to work.
And I've heard you talk about this day and you call it the best thing that ever happened to your business, which is kind of mind-blowing. The day that your business burns down, you say is the best thing that happened to your business. Why?
I would say multiple reasons. Number one, just really being able to go through something like this with your employees and being able to really battle through something where you all are working together towards a common goal. It was just amazing for our culture just to be celebrating the different milestones and for our company to know that we can go through absolutely anything together. And at that moment, really, we relied on each other. So that was something where, the trust and everything that, that was gained through this whole experience was something that we'll never have back. And it's interesting because now that we added so many employees since the fire, that like people come in and if they weren't part of that experience, it takes them a little while to kind of get our whole culture because of how trustworthy we are and how much we rely on each other.
And right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and the whole economy is in crisis. Families are in crisis. Are your employees who have lived through the fire, who are healthy, because I don't want to minimize or not be sensitive to the fact that people's health is in danger right now. As a company, it's a difficult time for you, but are folks who have weathered the fire reacting differently to what's happening right now with the economy and with your business?
Oh my, absolutely. We actually were joking about this, unfortunately, like a week or two ago, where somebody says, well, at least we have our data, So looking at this, it just kind of puts things in perspective. And I don't want to minimize the situation and what's going on at all in terms of the pandemic out there. But for us, the people that have been through the fire and that situation of rebuilding are really the ones that are the leaders today in terms of having faith and not fear. And just for us to just being able to continue to work through all the different scenarios that are being presented to us and just being able to really prioritize on what's important.
Are they offering support to people who haven't been through it? People who this is maybe the first crisis they've ever been in their entire life?
Oh, I definitely think so. Because where I see this happening is where people are running all these different what if scenarios. What if that happens? What if this happens? And the people that have been through the fire, it was all about focusing on today, and getting laser focused. And that really helped all of us to say, let's focus on today. So when somebody's talking about what if scenarios, especially future what if scenarios that have a negative connotation or negative leaning, it's exhausting. So all we were able to do is focus on what, what's being done today. And then also the importance of celebrating those milestones. Every little day we had milestones and we celebrated that. And that was something that's really still an important part of our culture today is those celebrations.
And I suspect that on Friday when you shut down before the fire, you might have shipped out a fireplace that week. Probably there wasn't a party. Nobody was clapping. There wasn't a celebration. Tell me about the party that happened when that first fireplace was shipped out of post-fire.
Oh my, it was just awesome. Because the fireplace obviously had to be built totally from scratch, like sub-assemblies and all that stuff. Everything had to be made totally from scratch. And all the parts that came into it, just like all of our suppliers just showed up with machines and parts and welding guns and screws. We didn't even know what we needed, but all of our suppliers did. So all of our suppliers showed up with all of our materials saying, Chris, this is what I think you're going to need. And we had 20 suppliers show up with just tons of inventory, because we didn't, obviously we didn't have our full inventory systems in front of us. So it was such a community experience because that fireplace and the shipping of that fireplace took all of our suppliers, took all the people in the community that opened up their space to us and machines to us. And then obviously all of our employees drive to make it happen. So the celebration around that one fireplace was awesome. And we met at the fireplace went out and obviously we called, the customer and said, your fireplace is heading out. I'll never forget the day. And then from there, we went to a bowling alley, all the employees and family. And, we had pizzas and beer. And then that's when we started having kind of our bigger and better parties. So we just started communicating and meeting there every week, just for me to kind of give the full update on our company, where we're headed, update on customers, update on suppliers, update on employees.
And so many lessons out of your whole story, but celebrate the day, right? Take nothing for granted. You never thought when you shipped out that fireplace before the fire that was the last one at that facility. And yet people were just taken for granted they were going to come back to work on Monday. And I love the concept of, the community and celebrating together and how your company and the people are stronger. And you have touched on it several times that the relationships are what got you through. The relationships with the employees, the relationships with the community, and those relationships were built pre-fire. And your story is such a before and after. I mean, there's such a defining moment. And the years that you spent building relationships and friendships and being a community connector and you're all those things. And that's what you needed. You didn't even know you needed it, and you weren't doing it for any reason except that's who you are. That's what got you through on the other end. And I suspect that was very motivating and inspiring for all of your employees to just watch that, come to fruition, all those relationships you'd built.
And the important thing, too, for the employees was just their involvement and communication with all their families, and for families to be invited, because I think a lot of spouses were very concerned about the future of AccuCraft and the future of our business and what does it really look like. And maybe we should be looking for something that, has a building that's not burned down. And I mean, for us to be able to have that community and be able to bring everybody together. And I feel like for me at that moment, the amount of transparency and information that I was sharing went to a whole new level with our suppliers, but really with our employees. I mean, all of a sudden I was sharing absolutely everything but individual employee pay. And that's where I drew the line. But everything above that, we absolutely shared what was going on with insurance, what was going on in terms of our financials, and I mean, high level, how much we're spending, and then how much, also we're being gifted from different suppliers in the community, just so people really knew, who we should be thanking and celebrating.
The other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is we have been in this peer group for several years, and I want you to talk about the importance of different peer groups and vulnerability and authenticity and all those things that sometimes people in business, especially owners, either don't take the time for or feel like they're alone. And you have reaped the benefits of peer groups, and I'm reaping the benefit of my relationship with you every time we meet and every time we talk. And we're talking a lot more regularly now that we're in the middle of this pandemic and running businesses. But talk about the peer groups and how you might encourage other people who are listening to build relationships.
Yeah, thank you. I think obviously we're in a very special peer group focusing on what is best for each other and how to support and encourage each other. And I've been in many different peer groups, and those are still, some of my closest friends today. And so I can't stress enough the importance for me on peer groups and receiving peer information and receiving, just everybody being able to get together and share experiences. So I've been in a peer group for years. One of my main board members is from a peer group I was in 14 years ago, and he's been instrumental in shaping our business today and really guiding us, because he's always about 5 to 10 years ahead. So he says, watch out, this is coming, or be careful, this is, is around the corner. So that's been really instrumental. And I think being an entrepreneur, I hear a lot about how lonely it is being an entrepreneur. And I guess I really haven't felt that, because I feel like there's such a community of entrepreneurs if you seek it. And so I feel from, an entrepreneur, standpoint but the importance of seeking, those relationships and going in with offering to give first before you receive, and really find a group that works well for you. And the value is just awesome. It's instrumental. In terms of our peer group today and everybody working together, going through updates in the news, updates with the economy, and just how all of us are going through and supporting our employees and customers. It's really, it's a game changer.
And we are aligned in thinking about peer groups in that it isn't just about business, because you can't separate family and work. And it's a whole person. It's holistic. Our families get together. We really talk about what's going on at home. We talk about what's going on at work. I talk about this all the time. What happens at work impacts home. What happens at home impacts work. And a lot of peer groups, I think, really try to focus on only work, and that doesn't work. So if you're in one of these peer groups and you're listening and you're only talking about professional things or business, boy, I encourage you to find a group where you can also talk about the rest of your life, because they do impact and influence each other. That's how yours have been as well, right, Chris?
Oh, absolutely. And I think going back to the fire event, I mean, one thing that I did is I just got laser focused on work and laser focused on rebuilding. And I missed a lot of moments within my family. I mean, there were months where I was just absent, because of the amount of work and the focus that was on the rebuilding. And I feel like if I was in our current peer group then, because I wasn't in a peer group during the fire. In fact, I was applying to be part of the group, and then I put it on pause because I applied like 2 weeks before the fire. But if I felt like if I was in my peer group during this experience, it would have been like, Chris, how's your family? Are you checking in with them? Are you present? Are you putting dates on the calendar for date night and for, your individual daddy-daughter events and meetings and dinners and things like that? So it would have been much more beneficial for me had, being in our peer group with the family focus and business focus being discussed.
And I know this is one of such a defining moment in your professional life. And there's 5 of us in our peer group, in case you're wondering how big this peer group is. I think I speak on behalf of the other folks in our group that it's a bummer that we didn't know you then, because I would have loved to have been there. I would have loved to have been there at that and helping. And it's hard to know that all this happened and to know the rebuilt Chris and not to have been able to help you during that time. So again, I encourage folks, get in groups. When times are good, you'll need them when times are bad. And
it's either one or the other, Christy. I mean, candidly, I've been in business for 20 some years. And I mean, through the 2001 stock market and the tech crash there, obviously there was 9/11, there was the 2008 recession, which definitely impacted housing. And then the fire in 2015. And then now what we're going through, it just, in terms of the ups and downs, I mean, we're in one or we're in the other. And I think we just need to be able to be in a situation and be the type of leader that can manage both of those well, with the ups and the downs. And the other thing that I really appreciate about our group is that we're all in really different industries. So currently we're all in times of crisis, but oftentimes someone's business is struggling and someone else's business is growing. And there's so much value in sharing just what has worked, culture, family, all sorts of different things. And I think there's value in being in peer groups within an industry. There's also a lot of value and because truth is truth. And people who are in peer groups that are in different industries, there's a lot of value because you can just learn so much and it transcends. I have been in your shop. I have seen the guys building those fireplaces and it's amazing. I have no idea how to build a fireplace. I have no idea barely how to turn mine on. Thank goodness there's a switch on the wall. But yet we have so much in common when it comes to handling business and working mindset. So again, don't let the industry hold you back from what could be a really great relationship. I agree. And Christy, in terms of like the industry and looking at, the value of having people from different industries and what I've learned from you in terms of branding and culture and customers, it's something that I would never have learned being in a specific industry group. And I think that's one thing that's so great about our forum is having to be obviously leaders that are like-minded in terms of how much we care about our families and our employees and our customers, but then also that we are in totally different worlds that we deal with, but the similarities outweigh the differences. 100%. And if anyone is interested in your fireplaces and seeing some of the beautiful work, we certainly have links on flipyourscriptpodcast.com, but tell me about your website and what you do. Just I want to make sure that we get a shout out to the beautiful things you build. Oh, thank you. AccuCraft is inspired by designers, architects, and homeowners that come to us with unique fireplace designs, and they ask us, is this something that you can build, and what will it look like? So for us, we solve the problem of mass-produced fireplaces, and it's something that we love doing, is working directly with people throughout the world and coming up with custom, unique fireplace designs and systems. We manufacture and design all of our products here in Big Lake, and we ship direct to the job site worldwide. And then we offer on-site services to assist with installation, calibration, and service for the life of the product. And we've been doing this for about a little over 40 years. And it's just something that as a company that we just really enjoy doing, is finding yes to all of our customers' needs and wants and crazy dreams and desires. And you built some cool stuff. Some really, I didn't know a fireplace could do that. And I know you can't talk about your customers, but I imagine people listening, you've seen them. You've seen them somewhere, and some of your really neat ones are on your website as well. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we're just honored to have been selected by just so many great architects, designers, and just influential people. But then also just, the regular person who's just looking for just an awesome wood burning fireplace or just something that's really unique for them in their home. So every fireplace we build it's got its own story, and it's something that we really enjoy.
And you can hear the passion in your voice. And AccuCraft.com, I know, is your website. Last thing, Chris, it's a question I ask everyone at the end of the Flip Your Script podcast. Was there a song, a quote, a verse, something that got you through those difficult days?
Boy, I think there were a lot of different things. I think the primary thing is just a verse from Matthew 6:34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So it's, again, back to just being focused on today and what we can control and really what's in front of us, because I do believe so much of our worry is caused by negative what-if future scenarios. So if we can minimize that as much as possible and focus on really what's in front of us and the decisions that we need to make today based on strong data and not, future what-ifs and things we can't control, and just focus on what we can control and really focus. I think the key thing too for me was just obviously the relationships with employees and customers, suppliers, our advisors. It was a really neat time.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Christy. I appreciate you getting me out of my comfort zone. It's something that you've always done. And I believe you made a mistake in asking me to do this. So I'm doing this because obviously you believe in me more than I believe in myself. And I really appreciate it. So thank you.
I'm glad you shared it. I think someone is going to find just what they need from your story. And it's such a good story and it's inspirational. And I'm honored you shared it with me. The thing about Chris's story is that he flipped his script and essentially turned the page, but it was to the same chapter. He didn't start a different business. He started the same business, but getting there required grit, perseverance, and you heard about it a lot. He talked about it. A tribe of people who showed up in ways Chris never expected. My hope is that Chris's story empowers you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find the strength to turn the page.
Thank you for listening to Flip Your Script, hosted by Christy Peel and produced by Media Minefield. If you like our message, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also check out flipyourscriptpodcast.com for pictures, resources mentioned in the show, and information about our other great episodes.